Well, the increase in violence and peer bullying, a disease or a learned behavior. So let's define violence first. In 1961, WHO has defined for the first time in history violence as a public health issue, which is defined as any action that harms others physically with the result of temporary or permanent harm. In 2014, many years after this definition, there is a prevention report by WHO. There is a detection report as well in 2002. I will talk about it in a minute, but this report is more prior to our case because we will be discussing the violence cases in children and peer bullying, which is mentioned for the first time in this report. The national action plans and their necessity to prevent violence has only been mentioned in this report dating 2014, which is quite recent. The peer bullying has been defined by the WHO as well as two peers, and the stronger of which is oppressing the weaker in a physical or psychological violence. The first report about peer bullying has been issued in 1982, and it's the first date, it's the year that this issues has been the issue in our country for the first time. This is a report in 2002, again the report I was talking about. It's the report that tackles with the problems of the students in their school age. Smoking, drug use, sexual health, the nutrition, nutritive behaviors and bullying are included in this report. The dissemination, its spread in the countries vary a lot, from 1% to 50%, but the peer bullying occurs among the students between the ages of 11 to 18. And it changes, it varies according to culture. From culture to culture, it's different. So the situation about Turkey is as follows. In 2007, the Grand National Assembly of Turkey has created a group of investigation for peer bullying and has come up with these numbers. Among the peer bullying made in Turkey, 22% includes physical violence, 53% verbal violence, 36% emotional violence, 15% sexual violence, and 35 physical, 48 verbal, 27 emotional violence occurs in our country. So, is it a disease or disorder or a behavior? This is the main question, but unfortunately there is not a single answer. There is not a single answer. Rolf Lauber is the primary researcher about that topic. He has approximately 200 published works about that work, about this violence at school, antisocial character disorders, behavioral issues and diseases, behavioral disorders and so on. He says that violence is like a seed. If there is a potential in the seed, and if the seed meets an appropriate soil, it ends up as a plant. So the violence is like that. If the person has a potential for violence, if he finds a suitable environment, then violence is inevitable. There are three ways of violence, the three pathways for violence, which is widely accepted in the literature. The first pathway is the open pathway. It's about aggression, and it is a path that moves from aggressiveness, the aggression, to violence. The covert pathway is mainly about the cohort or the closed and hidden behaviors like lying or stealing, kleptomany, or vandalizing the environment, or bigger thefts, for example, leads to violence in the second cohort pathway. The third one is the confliction with the authority. In the third pathway, we see conflictions with the authority, which includes many conflictions with the authority starting from the family and moves towards the state itself. So these are the pathways to violence. The other reasons are as follows: the inappropriate role models, the new generation parenting or new generation parenthood, the unbalanced catharsis, inevitable loneliness, and immature ego are the main reasons of violence, which will be the topic of my presentation as well. So, social learning theory is very essential to understanding the nature of violence. It is a very contemporary theory built upon the classic imitation model, and it sets off with the idea that imitation is not sufficient to learn a behavior, and the individuals, the people, may learn a behavior either by imitation or by observation. Let's say a child sees his friend cheating in an exam. This is an observation. And if he sees that this friend who cheats is caught and failed the exam, he will learn, that child, the observer, will learn not to cheat in the exams. This is observation. So it is not imitation. This is a lesson learned through observation. Bandura says that, and the same mechanism is valid for violation as well. This is shown in Bandura's own studies too. So the reaction from the people around the observational learning and indirect learning have an active effect on violation and violent behavior. This is Bandura's own experiment with children. Let's see the video. Then we will discuss it later. This is a Bob doll experiment. The child is taught how to play with it. One group has a violence-based learning. The other group has neutral learning. This is the first group based on violence. The children who observe the violence-based playing method imitate the violence, and they do not only use violence, but they also develop their own methods of violence. This is Bandura, by the way. The children use new strategies for performing violence that they have never seen from the adults who teach them how to play with the Bobo doll.
Venting aggression would drain away the viewer's aggressive drive. As you can see, exposure to modeled aggression is hardly cathartic. Televised violence has four major effects. It teaches aggressive styles of behavior, weakens restraints over aggression, desensitizes and habituates viewers to human cruelty, shapes viewers' images of reality.
Bandura bu modelle aslında şiddetin medya
Bandura, with this model, touches upon the impact of the social learning devices such as computer games, he conducts many social experiments, and we see the impact of imitation and the reaction of society as the two factors that play a role in the learning of violence by the children. With this mass communication devices, Bandura claims that the violent behaviors for the society can be directed to any route, any direction. These repetitive videos are shown to the respondents, and they have been found to employ aggression, and in these studies the movements, the waves of brain are also shown. So we see that, we understand by the studies that brain requires aggression to inflict violence over to the person's behavior, and they may create a signal for developing a violent behavior. And the biggest impact of the violent-based media or materials is the fearlessness, and the threshold of violence increases in the individual. So this violent behavior is normalized in the eyes of the child or the respondent, and the child is under the influence of this kind of behaviors. So the behavior influences the society, and the society later on influences the behavior. And the characteristics of the models are very important for Bandura, the role models we are talking about here. The first role model for the child, you may say, could be the family, etc. But the studies, according to different age groups, are different. Younger age groups are more influenced by the cartoon characters rather than their family members and so on. So the media effect, the press and media effect, are much higher in younger kids. For the children, it is the family members and the teachers, and for the teenagers, they are the celebrities, the actors and actresses, etc. The foreseeing capacity is very important. So the people who see, a violent inflictor, a violence perpetuator, and they witness what happens to them, and then they adopt this type of behavior according to their observation. So this is another way of learning. Two other factors are self-regulation and self-judgment factors. In the national action plans against violence, the most impactful method is to improve the self-regulation and self-judgment skills of the individuals. So the people who are observing or exposed to violence do not imitate this violent behavior. The media effect is important, as we said, especially toddlers, babies, toddlers, and small children are influenced by whatever they see on the TVs, and since they are developing their cognitive process, they do not have a higher relationship with the reality as the adults. Therefore, they take the cartoon characters as role models. For the adults, this scale is changing, and their perception, or our perception in this case, about fearlessness and bravery, etc., is changing. Suicide is like, it is a violence that the person self-inflicts. Suicide requires two things. The first, the will to die, and the capacity to kill yourself. They are the two things required by suicide. And the first, even though media do not have an impact on the first impulse, it definitely encourages the potential and the means of applying violence to yourself, so to say, your suicide. In the literature, the studies in the literature support this opinion. The social media has an impact on violence as well, because it has a great influence in our sentiments, in our emotions. Facebook has a great emotional experiment, a subject for many trials, many cases. It was done in 689,000 people and later on published as an article in 2014. What they did is the positive behaviors and aggressive content are given in the news feed, and the audience is separated in two, randomized, and they find that the group who sees, violent feeds in their wall are sharing violent posts. The ones who don't see it do not share the violent posts on their walls. This is the observation of the Facebook experiment. So we can see that social media has an effect on our violent behaviors. The other thing that we can discuss is the parenthood styles. They are on the right, the classic ones, the standard ones, the permissive.
Bunlarla ilgili çalışma
There are very clear research about this. Authoritarian parents, the children of authoritarian parents actually are more tend to be more violent, and there's the peer bullying. There is always a victim, and the people who punish these behaviors, and all of them actually are losers in that case. There are no winners in terms of peer bullying, for example. And this is very clear in research, and it is said that the inhibitor skills of the children who have very authoritarian parents, they actually lose their self-control. Their self-control is deteriorating because of the authoritarian parenting method. And this was shown repeatedly in research. So let's come to the topic of new generation parenting. We have been talking about this a lot. There are the helicopter parents, which are extremely protective of their child. And the other one is the bulldozer parenting, which are parents who eliminate any kind of obstacle on the way of their child. And there are some dysfunctional family systems that are the result of these new generation parenting methods. Or, these children are called lost child or problem child, family hero, or mascot children. These are all terms that are the result of new age or new generation parenting methods. And there are a lot of studies regarding all of those. I combined them here under anxiety, fear, and aggression. These are the results of these parenting styles. For example, in children who live with families, with parents who make everything easier for them, aggression behavior is more likely to occur. But there are still not clear research about that. But there are a lot of papers about being a single child. There is a definition called an only child syndrome. It's not in the literature, but in a lot of studies, it is shown that being an only child is related to more aggressive behavior and lower social skills. Unbalanced catharsis is another topic. It actually comes from Zeus, from ancient Greek. It means actually purification or emptying something. And when you watch a tragedy, you actually feel that catharsis, feel that it actually means that you actually empty out all your emotions, everything, into what you're seeing. Freud also states that because of our some compulsions and impulses we have, aggression may develop in people. And the catharsis theory is it usually resembles a hydraulic model, hydraulic system. If you do not empty out the water slowly from different outlets, and if you let it get bigger and bigger, it has to explode at some level. So catharsis actually should be at a gradual level. And playing, for example, is a catharsis method for children. So, should kids play with toy guns or not? Should they be able to play with toy guns or not? Of course, there are a lot of pediatric psychiatrists here, and I don't think it will be a wise thing to say here in this hall. But maybe would it contribute to catharsis? There are some people who defend that it will be a way to towards catharsis, so it would be more beneficial. And there are some people who say that we shouldn't promote toy guns, but we shouldn't block them if they ever want to play with guns. So, what do the research papers say about this? Here, this research focuses on the criminal activities of children who played with toy guns in their childhood. So these are actually not really foreseeable things for the future, but of course there are some risk groups, ADHD, male sex, and actually these types of risk factors are listed, and these are some of the social catharsis examples. You can see a matador here, you can see a bullfight, or there is a cheese rolling festival in England. You can see in the top right picture. Thousands of people die in these events, but these are the examples of unbalanced catharsis. And hooliganism is another example. It is derived from football. It brings not only a fandom, but on the negative side, it brings a negative side. It brings a fanaticism. For example, you never hear someone say, our team or this team is having a match against our team. No, they always start with, we are having a match with this team. And the enemy of my enemy is my friend, or the friend of my friend is my friend. Those types of statements are always used in hooliganism. And another thing is the unavoidable loneliness. And loneliness is actually, in the modern world, we are becoming more and more lonely. And there are a lot of things that are associated with this. Our development regarding morals or our behaviors are not really as controlled as they used to be. Of course, this comes with a lot of different effects, but social isolation and loneliness is a very effective factor in violent behavior, and this perceived loneliness is especially associated with violence. It was shown in a lot of different research papers. Here's a study from Turkey. As loneliness increases, aggression increases alongside it, and there is the immature ego part in my presentation. This is actually similar to social learning theory and parenting and self-regulation, self-control. All of these functions similarly. Today, the superego is not as strong as it used to be. The individuals are changing their perception of ego, and parenting is becoming less and less it becomes more difficult. And the relationship between self-efficacy and aggressive behavior was shown here. I'm sorry to keep it short, but I don't want to extend my time.